Okay, we shall start now. Before I start, you do let me know a suitable date for your next quiz. Maybe within a week or so. Maybe, yeah. Today is what? Yeah, 22. Maybe, yeah. By the end of this month. Yeah, one day. One date you decide and let me know. Okay, so
Excuse
we
me, sir.
shall. Yeah.
The quiz will be doing in class hours or after or before class hours? Like,
If you can do it on Monday, Tuesday, so that it can extend, that is fine. Otherwise, it should be on Saturday, because Friday anyway you do not. I mean, 3 to 4, and after 4 you have classes, right? Some of you have classes.
yes, sir.
Yeah, if you want, you can keep it on Monday, Tuesday, but otherwise Saturday, uh, that would be
Okay,
good.
okay, sir. Fine.
Yeah. Okay. So this time we will talk about a little bit of unconstrained optimization. What is unconstrained? It basically means over an open set or Rn itself, something like that. So the general problem would be like minimize fx subject to x belonging to a set T. So T as usual we will call feasible set. Okay. Okay. Uh, Suppose that you have the feasible set as we have done in the linear case also. We'll first talk about the set, a little bit of the set first. Then we'll go and discuss the function. So here, assume that you have a point A. Okay. Suppose that you have a point A in a feasible set. So then the set could be like anything. So suppose that you have a point A. If you can move in a direction D, some little bit in the direction, and still stay inside the set, feasible set, then that direction is called a feasible direction. That is called a feasible direction. Okay. So for, I mean, the idea is you start from the point A and you should be able to move a little bit, at least some epsilon bit, some positive bit in that direction, and you shall stay inside the set. Okay. So mathematically it means there exists some positive number delta such that for all t inside 0 to delta, uh, a plus td is inside t. So that's what it means. This is for all t. Okay. So that little bit of line segment has to be completely inside the set T. Okay. For example, consider this region. Consider the shaded region. Okay. Suppose I take this as T, and then the shaded region as T. And let me take the point 0, 0 as my point A. Okay. So A is equal to 0, 0. Now, what are the feasible directions that are available to me? As I see, I can move a little bit in this direction. I can move a little bit in this direction. I can move a little bit in this direction. So what are the feasible directions that are available at here at 0, 0? Now at 0, 0, the feasible directions that are available to me have this form. I can, so on x-axis, I can go a little bit positive. Okay, so by definition of a feasible direction, we do allow d equal to 0. So here I am talking about a non-trivial direction. Okay, so I can go in this direction, and so this is x, and if d is a vector of this form, the first coordinate is positive and the second coordinate is non-negative, all these directions are available to me. For example, I can take d to be, let's say, 1, 0. That basically means I am trying to move along the positive direction of x-axis a little bit, starting from 0, 0. Or I can take d to be 2, 5. That basically means in the direction of 2, 5, okay, I will be moving from 0, 0 in the direction of 2, 5. So all these directions, as you see, will be available. What direction is not available here? For example, the direction d equal to x coordinate 0, y coordinate 1 or 2 or something, if you take. This is not in d0, 0. Okay, d0, 0 means the feasible directions at the point 0, 0. This is not available because you cannot start from 0, 0 and move a little bit, whatever little bit on y-axis, and stay inside the shaded region. Oh, this shaded region, what is this shaded region? And this shaded region is part of the circle. Part of circle, center at 1, 0 and radius 1. Okay, so that is this shaded region. So D01 is not available. So these are the directions that are available. The non-trivial directions would be x coordinate positive and y coordinate greater than equal to 0. All these directions. Whatever point given, suppose this is a point that I am taking as the direction. What you do, when you join 0, 0, 0 to that, a part of that line will lie within the circle. Okay, inside the circle, and so you can accordingly take your small delta so that that small line segment stays inside the feasible direction. So that is why these are all possible directions. Now what happens if I take t to be this, the white region? Then what are the feasible directions that are available at 0, 0? Now if I take t to be the white region, if I take t to be the white region, what are the feasible directions that are available at 0, 0? Now the only feasible directions that are available for this t, okay, the only feasible directions available at origin are of the form 0, 1, and then some, and then positive multiples. So that means you can only start from 0, 0 and go in the direction of positive y-axis. That is the only direction actually available. If I am taking T to be the white region. If you take T to be the shaded region, what are the feasible directions available at the point 1, 0? If you take point to be 1, 0, what are the feasible directions available? Now the direction has this form. In the x coordinate, you can come only to the left. So the x coordinate will be little bit less than equal to 0. That's how it is. And y coordinate, in the y coordinate, you can only go a little bit up. So these are the feasible directions that are available. So essentially what you are looking at, not 1, 0, the feasible directions that you are looking at, this is nothing but the second quadrant. Okay, the points in the second quadrant. So it's basically talking about the affine cone standing at 1, 0. So essentially it is the second quadrant. Okay, so that is what is the meaning of feasible directions. And then the notation, remember this notation, capital D, this is not script D. Okay, this is capital D. There is something else we'll be talking about script D. This is capital D. Remember this, capital D means the set of all feasible directions available at A. Okay, and 0 is allowed. Okay, as part of definition we have said that we allow D equal to 0 here in the definition of feasible direction. Okay, so this is DA, and this symbol, as you already know, this is D closure, the set closure. Okay, the set along with all its limit points. Okay, okay. If the idea is clear, let me come to this workout. True or false? Basically, I have written it this way. I will be giving the answer, but you can try to guess your answer. Suppose A is in the interior of T. This T sharp means interior of T. A is an interior point. Then DA, the set of all feasible directions, is Rn. Is it true? The answer is yes. Yes, it is true. Because you are, T can be like anything, doesn't matter. But if you are at an interior point, then there is a small ball around it, which is completely inside T. This one is completely inside T. Then from that point A, given any direction D, you can go a little bit in that direction and still stay inside the ball. Okay, if B epsilon A is subset of T, then A plus TD belongs to B epsilon A for all T going from 0 to epsilon by 2 D norm. Okay, D, whatever D, non-trivial D. If D is 0, 0, then you don't have to say do anything. That's anyway there. So that will be there. Okay, so this will at best start from A and go up to the half the radius of the ball. Okay, so this is for NAD. So that's why DA, the all feasible directions. So that's Rn. Next one, consider the square plate with vertices 0, E1, E2, E1 plus E2. That is this square plate. Okay, 0 0 1 0 1 1 and 0 1. Okay, this is the square plate. What is D0? Well, it is saying D0 is the cone generated by E1 and E2. Is that true? The answer is yes. Because the feasible directions that are available at 0 0 have the form first coordinate greater than equal to 0, second coordinate greater than equal to 0. Well, that is nothing but the cone generated by E1, E2. That is non-negative linear, non-negative combinations of E1 and E2. Okay, so this is also true. Consider the same square plate. Then what is DE1? Now DE1, whether whether it is cone generated by minus E1 and E2. Yes, the answer is yes. That is also true. Argument is similar. Okay. So this is the idea about feasible directions. Okay. Remember, we will be till now I have not said anything about T. It's just a subset. Okay. Yeah. Whenever we are saying, as such, I will be taking T a subset of Rn, and suppose I am taking a point A inside T, and I am saying F is differentiable at A. So what do I mean by that? Now, what I mean by that, F is defined. It may be that this is T and A is at the boundary of T. It may be that. But when I am saying F is differentiable at T, at A, I mean then F is actually defined in some neighborhood of A, though I am supposed to minimize or maximize the function F on T. Nevertheless, the moment I say F is differentiable at A, I mean that F is defined in a neighborhood of A. Okay, and our definition is satisfied. So a little bit more. So when this is the meaning, when I am saying F is differentiable at A, it means that F is defined in some neighborhood of A. Okay. Okay. This is the first observation related to what is called the directional derivative. What is that? Now assume that you have a set T. I don't know how is the set, and then the point A. Okay, A may be in the boundary itself, and suppose that the directional derivative, there is a direction D, and the directional derivative of F at A is a negative number. Okay, and D is given to be a feasible direction. D is a feasible direction. So you have a set T. Okay, telling you again, you have a set T, a feasible direction D, and you are given that the directional derivative of F at A is negative. Then in fact, I mean, I am saying this lemma and the next result. Then A cannot be a local minimum. Now, why is that? Now look, what I have been given. Now I have been given the point A, and then what? Now a feasible direction D. Now because it is a feasible direction D, I can move in the direction D a little bit, maybe some up to A plus epsilon D, up to that, and this whole line segment will stay inside T. Okay, this whole line segment will stay inside T. Fine, but this much, I mean, this line segment is definitely available in T. Okay, and then what you have given me? Now you have also given me that the directional derivative with respect to this D. Okay, the directional derivative with respect to this D is a negative number. Now what is this directional derivative? Now the directional derivative by definition means what? Now limit t going to 0, f of a plus td minus fa by t. Okay, that you have given it to be less than 0. Okay, now what I do, this limit is less than 0, that you have given me. Now what I do, I will take t very small so that, and approach A from positive side. So I will take t less than epsilon by 2, and I will consider in particular limit t going to 0 plus f of a plus td minus fa by t. Now since this first limit exists, this second limit will also exist, and it will be negative also. It will also be negative. Okay, but then this basically means, for because the limit is negative, okay, limit is a negative number, so whatever is that limit, so it follows that there will exist, like when t is very very small, you can put another epsilon dax or something, you can use that. It will follow that f a plus td minus fa will be less than epsilon, less than, I mean, will be negative when t is small. Okay, so let me write it in words, otherwise you will have to use, because of limit definition, you will have to use another delta or alpha, you will have to use that. So that basically means there exist very small numbers t such that f a plus td has value smaller than fa. So in that case, A cannot be a point of local minimum. That's what it says. Well, the first lemma 28.4 says that without using the feasible direction, it basically says that whenever you have a directional derivative at A negative, it means that for small values of theta, here it uses theta, for small values of theta, Fa plus theta d is less than Fa. Okay, that's what it says. Okay, for theta between 0 delta. Okay, so like for small values of positive theta, that's what. And if you are talking about negative theta, then Fa plus theta, like because I mean, you can imagine it to be, you can imagine the function. So because it is negative, you can imagine the directional derivative to be decreasing like this. So this is what happens. This is where you would get, if this is A, this is where it is A plus theta d, that is the smaller one. And for theta negative, f of A plus theta d will be larger than f of theta a. But we don't worry, we are just happy enough with this, no problem. Okay, so the corollary that it says is that, so if A is a point of local minimum, okay, somebody has told you that A is a point of local minimum, then the set of feasible directions and the set of directions along which the directional derivative at A is negative, their intersection will be empty. They will be disjoint. Otherwise, if this set is not disjoint, it will mean that there is a feasible direction along which the directional derivative is negative. But as you just proved, if such a thing happens, then A cannot be a point of local minimum. Okay, so this is the corollary. Fine. Now with that, so what you have proved, I mean said, if I say A is local minimum, this basically means no feasible directions, you will never have a feasible direction D such that along which the directional derivative of f at A is negative. You will never have this. Okay, if it is a point of local minimum. Okay, so the first theorem that you get is the first order necessary condition. What is that? Now suppose that you have the set T and A is a local minimum of f. We are assuming that f is differentiable at A, at the point A. Then taking the contraposition, part A follows. Okay, part A is the negative. If we have D, suppose I have D a feasible direction at A. Suppose D is a feasible direction at A. And it is already given that A is a local minimum. Now because D is a feasible direction, then it must be that the directional derivative of f along this direction must be greater than or equal to 0. That must be the case. Now if D is in the closure, in that case, what do you know? Now I can have a sequence of points in dA that will converge to D. if D belongs to the closure. Okay, if D belongs to the closure, it basically means you can have a sequence of points in D that will converge to D, and for each one of them, Dn Fa is greater than equal to 0. Each one of them, okay, it is greater than equal to 0. So it will follow that. What is this, by the way? Now this is actually nothing but grad f at A inner product dn, isn't it? And this inner product is a continuous function. Grad f A is fixed, right? So it is like dn converges to D. Grad f A you can think about like C. So if xn converges to x, then C transpose xn converges to C transpose x. It's like that. Okay, so this will converge to grad fa transpose D in a product, basically that. And since each one of these grad fa in a product dn is greater than equal to 0, the limit will also be greater than equal to 0. So that proves A. Part B. Now suppose that A belongs to T, not T interior. So if A belongs to T interior, then what do I know? Now I know that dA is equal to Rn. So if I take any D which is not equal to 0, then this directional derivative of f is greater than equal to 0. That's what you said in the part A. And this is what? Now this is nothing but grad fa inner product D is greater than equal to 0. And I know that I can take D, I can take any D because dA equal to Rn. In particular, if I take D equal to E1, what do I get? Now, the first entry of grad fa equal to 0, taking D equal to E1. Okay. If I take D equal to E1 and substitute it here, what do I get? I get the first entry. So first entry is greater than equal to 0. Greater than equal to 0, not equal to 0. And then taking D equal to minus E1, I will get first entry is less than equal to 0. Next, I take E2 and minus E2 to conclude that the second entry is also equal to 0. And then similarly, you take En and minus En to conclude that the nth entry is equal to 0, which basically means grad fa is equal to 0. Grad fa is nothing but the transpose of f dax. Okay, f dax is a row vector, grad is a column vector. Okay, so that proves that f dax a is equal to 0. Fine. Any questions till now?
No, sir.
Okay. Fine enough. This is kind of very similar to what you had in your single variable. Of course, this is n variables and n equal to 1 is included here. So it basically says if you are talking about a local minimum of f and A is a point of interior where the function is differentiable, then the derivative has to be 0. That's what it is saying. Okay, and here the derivative is meaning the row vector. So it is generalizing the single variable case. So that is fine, no problem. Now you would say, okay, let me give this, recall the definition. What is a stationary point or a critical point? Most of the time we use critical point. Okay, it is a point where f dash a is equal to 0. Okay, by this 0 it is the 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, this kind of this thing. Normally, actually, here 0 stands for 0 transpose. Huh? Normally, when you say it is a vector, we mean a column vector. So then in that case, the ideal would have been grad f, because grad f a is a column vector. Otherwise, it's a little bit of writing, not so strict writing. When I am saying f dash a equal to 0, there I am, in that, if I am writing that, then I am allowing 0 to be like 0, 0, 0, 0 in a row way, because f dash a is a row vector. Okay, and then so critical point means the derivative equal to 0. So the reason I am following derivative, actually books will follow grad f a equal to 0. But the reason I am following f dash a equal to 0, so that you stay with your first single variable this thing. Okay, a critical point is called a saddle point if every open ball around A, so suppose A is a critical point, so each open ball, whatever epsilon open ball you will take, you will find one direction in which the function is increasing, and you find another direction in which the function is decreasing. Okay, so then in that case, it says saddle point. I mean, there is a point nearby, there is a point x which has value bigger than fa, and there is a point y which has value lesser than fa. Oh, here I am saying there is a point x where fx is less than fa, and there is a point y where fy is bigger than fa. So essentially, if every neighborhood of A contains 2 points, one at which the functional value is bigger than fa, and the other at which the functional value is lesser than fa. Okay, a critical point is called a saddle point if that happens. Okay, so it basically means a critical point is either a local minimum or a point of local maximum or a saddle point. Okay, because not a saddle point means there exists an epsilon ball in which you will never find two different points like this. So which basically means all the points, either they are all less than equal to fa, I mean fx is less than equal to fa. In that case, you say fa is local, I mean a is local maximum, or fx is greater than equal to fa. In that case, you say a is local minimum. Okay, whatever we have learned till now, let's try this one. Fx equal to just finding out the critical points. Fx equal to, I mean, two variable f of x1 x2 is equal to this. So find its critical points. So that critical points, you, I mean, for that what do you have to do? Now you have to compute this grad fa. So what is grad fa? Now grad fa you will compute, that will be minus 2 x1 and then the same f and then minus 2 x2, the same thing. And then you have to equate that to 0. and because these parts cannot be this, so this would imply you get x1 x2 has to be equal to 0 0, which basically means 0 0 is the only critical points, because this exponential of anything is not always non-zero. Okay, no problem. This is the find. You try to find out critical points. You must have done this in several variables, but nevertheless do this so that you remember. Now let's go to the application. Suppose that I want to optimize. Optimize means optimize means find the, talk about the minimum, talk about the maximum. Optimize means that it includes both. Okay, not just minimum or maximum. Okay, now you want to optimize this, then the first thing is that you find the critical points. Okay, let me do this one. Find the critical points. Try to find the critical points. Then what you will get? You will get twice x minus y square minus 4x5 x4 y square, and here minus 2y okay, and that I equate to 0 0. So that would give me the following. This gives 2x minus 4x5, and this one is 2yx square. This has to be 0 0. So in to make the first one 0 0, either you will have to have x equal to 0 or x power 4 equal to half. So x equal to plus minus 1 by okay, that is fine. And the second one, from the second one you get either x equal to 0 or y equal to 0. So what are the critical points? Now critical points can be, so critical points, if x is equal to 0 it is satisfied, anything y anything, or x has to be plus minus 1 by 2 power 1 by 4. In that case y has to be 0. These are the critical points. Okay, fine. These are the critical points. Fine. Next is from here conclude that 0y, that is 0 2, are absolute minimums. Okay, when I am writing these minimums, actually minimums is not the correct English word. The correct English word is minima, but I write minimums. Okay, so that is easier. This minima is bit non-trivial. So how do I conclude that 0y are absolute minimum? That is the 0t. I have written 0t. They are absolute minimum. Now for that I have to look at the function. What is the function? The function is this. Okay. I have found out the critical points. What is the function? The function fxy is equal to x square exponential minus x4 minus y square. Okay, so see, till now we only know a little bit, just a little bit, the first order necessary condition. With that, too much of application we cannot do. So if we have to conclude something, we can conclude only with very special kind of functions, and this is such a special function. This function is always greater than equal to 0. Okay, so once we observe that, and what is the value at f0t? Now f0t is equal to 0. So they automatically says that 0 to 0t, these are absolute. You cannot get value, functional value lesser than that. So this is absolute minimum. Okay, fine. Conclude that f is very small outside large balls. Fxy is equal to what? It is equal to x square exponential minus x4 minus y square. Now, so consider a ball of radius k. Here what? Now here I am taking xy norm, that is xy absolute value. If I single line absolute value also, it means x square plus y square square root is equal to k, and k I am assuming bigger than 1. Suppose you are looking at a ball of radius k and you are at a point xy. Okay, so you have taken a ball of radius k. Now suppose I am at a point, so this take another point xy. Okay, so this is this one. Take a point that is outside, right? Then what do I have? And then fxy is equal to x square by exponential x4 plus y square. Now if x mod is greater than equal to 1, then this value is less than equal to x square by exponential x square plus y square. Why now in place of x4 I have taken x square, so the value has reduced, so the denominator has reduced, so the fraction will become larger. I mean this one will become larger. Okay, and this is of the form. Okay, this is of the form some k square by exponential k square. Why of the form? It is less x square by, you make it less than equal to this. Okay, let me say, let me not take this to call this. Consider a circle of radius 1. Okay, outside that you choose a point. And so that point distance from origin is k. So let us not confuse. I am looking at the circle or disk of radius 1. The point xy is outside the disk, and the absolute value of that point, that is the distance or the norm, is k, and k is bigger than 1. Okay. Now x square, now this one I can write less than equal to, because x square plus y square is equal to k square. So this, okay, fine, this part. And what else? Now this is equal to x square by x power 4 plus y square. This is, so here I am taking x mod less than 1 is less than equal to 1 by exponential y square. Why? Now the numerator has increased and the denominator has decreased. Okay. And of course this is less than equal to 1 by exponential k square minus 1. Okay, to convert it to k. Now notice that as k goes to infinity, this goes to 0 and this goes to 0. Okay, so this basically shows that the value of fxy goes to 0 as I mean go away from origin. Okay, so this basically means fxy goes to 0 as xy absolute value goes to infinity. Fine. Fine. From there, conclude that the absolute maximum must exist. Now, how do I conclude that the absolute maximum must exist? Now look. I do have the other critical points. At the other critical points, remember what were they? They were plus minus 1 by 2 power 1 by 4 and 0. At that, this is fxy. Fxy is x square divided by exponential x4 plus y square. Anyway, y square is 0. X square will be 1 by root 2, and x4 is equal to half. Okay, so it will be 1 by root 2 and then e power half. So that would be 1 by square root of twice e. So at these points, okay, we have the functional value 1 by square root of e. Fine. And if I take a ball of huge radius m, I know outside the ball the functional values are lesser than 0.00001 because they go to 0 as the absolute value goes to infinity. Fine. So if I am looking at the maximum value of the function, Acha, if I look at this compact set, closed ball of radius m, will the maximum exist? Nah, the maximum definitely will exist because f is a continuous function. Will the maximum value be greater than equal to 1 by 2e, square root of 2e? Now, yes, of course, there are some points here at which the functional value is 1 by square root of 2e. So the maximum will be at least that. It can be bigger than that. We don't know, but definitely. So it follows that overall, the maximum value of the function will exist because outside the functional values are less than 0.000001. So it follows that the maximum value will definitely exist. But then what does FOMC say? FOMC says that if the maximum value exists and it is attained at a point, then the derivative must be 0. It must be a critical point. And we have only these two critical points available at which the functional values are the same. Therefore, they must be the absolute maximum. Okay. Fine. There is one more example that I will have to cover. I will cover it in the next class. If you try, you can try to read it, but that is more important. This one is more about a little bit of estimation. This one is more important application of the first order necessary condition. So I'll talk about it in the next class. You want to ask questions? You can ask.
Sir, about the upcoming quiz, what will be its duration? Can you please keep it for 2 hours like the mid-sem?
Keeping it the upcoming quiz, I will have to, I don't know. If I have to, you people have to promise me that you will not do copy. That is all. 2 hours is not a problem. That much if you assure me, I mean I should not feel bad that I give you more time and you use that to copy. I mean that is not good. So only that, in that case, that 2 hours should be in a Saturday, some 11 to 1 or something.
Yes, on weekends or on maybe Monday or Tuesday. Like
Monday or
we'll confirm with the quiz.
for yeah, huh? That is possible, like 4:15 to 6:15. It can be.
Yes, sir.
You people, I mean, you decide the time, you tell me, but not the coming week, huh? If you have to keep it on Monday or Tuesday, not the just the next week. Today is Friday, so the next 3 classes I want to take. After that, you will take. And the syllabus would be like transportation, assignment, and branch and bound, and yeah, within that. That kind of, that is the main focus. I am not saying that I will not go beyond that, but that would be my main focus. I will get, I mean, and this time I will not give extra questions. 4 questions, 5 marks each, 20 marks. That would be the target, because otherwise it is taking me a lot of time to evaluate, and so things are getting delayed.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. We'll discuss with the class and let you know.
Yeah. That will be good. Yeah.
Excuse me, sir. When you mentioned not the next Monday, so you're saying when the Monday you are referring to that we can have the quizzes the 1st and 2nd of November, a Monday and Tuesday.
हाँ.
Okay, so anytime after the 27th of October to the 2nd of November would be fine for you, you're saying?
I don't know, but if you want to have it on Monday or Tuesday,
Yes,
if you
so then
want,
we can have longer hours, yeah.
even Saturday also, 30th Saturday, that is also fine if people have time. Otherwise, yeah, 1 or 2.
Okay, sir. Thank you.